Cinco de Mayo, 2006. I was 25 years old. That's where our love story began. I had been out hanging out with friends that day, and I was driving home with my best friend in the passenger seat. At a red light, I stopped and I looked over at the car next to me, and I saw this big, beautiful smile staring at me. I smiled and looked away. We played this game of red light smile for the next few miles. Until eventually my best friend said the words that would change my life. I dare you to roll down the window and get his number. With a lot of inner nervousness, but outward confidence, I said, okay. So at the next light that caught the both of us, I honked my horn, I rolled down the window, and I said, well, since you keep staring, you might as well ask me for my number. He did. And so Mr. Smile called me a couple of days later, and on our first date at Robusto's in Grosse Pointe, I would learn that he was a divorced father of 2 young children, 7 years older than me, worked a lot of hours, and was a homeowner. We were in very different places in life. I had not even been in a real relationship up until that point. I mean, I had liked people who liked me back, but nothing that I would consider a real relationship. Nobody had sang a prom song to me yet. I was also in school, and I was working part-time selling kids' shoes at JCPenney. And I also still lived in my very pink childhood bedroom. We were in different places. And so we started dating casually. Let's call it casual. I would go over to his house a couple times a month. I would tell my grandparents, who I lived with at the time, that I was going to spend the night at my best friend's house, as for them not to think that I was, not a good girl of some sort. I would go to Mr. Smile's house, and we'd watch movies, and we'd talk, and he would cook for me, and we had a lot of very adult sex. I liked Mr. Smile a lot, but I put him in a bubble because I didn't know what it was. Very few of my friends and none of my family members knew he even existed. I just knew that I liked him, and I knew that I had never felt anything like what I felt when I was with him. Take, for instance, the night of April 7th, 2008. This laugh is gonna be premature, and y'all are gonna hate yourselves. I had buried my mother that day. And after all the pomp and circumstance of that service, I went home to that pink bedroom, and I laid in bed and I looked up at the ceiling, and I'd never felt lonelier in my life. So I called Mr. Smile and asked, could I come over? And he said yes. When I got to his house, it was pretty late, so we went straight to his bedroom. And we took off our clothes and got in bed, and like he did many times before, he grabbed me, except for this time, his touch made me wail with tears. And I started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And he kept asking me what's wrong, but I couldn't stop crying long enough to tell him what was wrong. And eventually, when I calmed down, I told him what had happened that day. He looked at me and said, well, why didn't you tell me what had happened? I would have been there for you. I would have shown up. I didn't think that the casualness of our relationship could handle such heavy material. We laid in bed that night, and he told me about his father who had passed a few years before that. We laid there crying and holding each other throughout the night. It remains one of the most intimate moments of my entire life. I often wondered at that moment, was there something that we could do to move things forward? But there wasn't. We weren't ready. And so we stopped dating at the end of that summer. It just ended. We ghosted each other. Fast forward to 2015. I'm now 33 years old. And I walk into a community meeting, and there he is with that big, beautiful smile. He took my phone number. We talked a couple times, but it would take a full year before we started dating again, casually. But the thing is that I was different. I was older, questionably wiser. I was a homeowner. I had a career that I loved, a very active social and community life. His life had changed as well. His children were older. He had changed careers, so he had more time. And I insisted that if you wanted to be with me, I was going to need more of that time. And so by June of 2016, we were in a fully committed relationship. Watching myself inside of this relationship was like watching yourself in a romantic dramedy. I was at his house a lot. I had a toothbrush, and then I had a drawer in the bathroom, and then I had a drawer in the bedroom, and then I bought candles and pillows. His refrigerator went from beer and Kool-Aid to kombucha and LaCroix. We were in this thing. I was in a fully committed relationship. That fall, I invited him to my best friend's house for a sip and see. Sip and see my man. Candice has got a man at home, y'all. Because see, even in the 6 years that we were apart, I still had never had the real thing, the committed thing. I was in love, and it felt so good. It was so beautiful to just have somebody love you without question. There were flowers for no reason. We would dance in the basement on a Friday night, just the two of us. We had a lot of soulful, juicy sex. We were doing mutual holidays, meeting the family, all the things that happen when you're with someone and you love them. By mid-2018, we were trying to figure out where and when would we live together. So we started mattress shopping, ring shopping. We even started looking at paint colors for hours at a time, something that evidently people in relationships do. It felt like I was on a road that led to everlasting love. We decided that the move would happen in late 2018. And then it became early 2019, and then all hell broke loose. Mother's Day 2019. I had, it was the second to the last episode of Game of Thrones. I remember this very clearly. There was also some NBA game on, evidently. His friends were in the basement watching the game, so when I walked into his house, they were downstairs and I could hear them. It was raining outside, and I had been out drinking with friends because Mother's Day was hard for both of us. By this point, we were both motherless. And so when I was sitting out with friends, I realized that I didn't want to go home and sleep alone that night, and I didn't have to because I had my man. So I called him up and told him I was coming over. I walked in, did a beeline to his bedroom to catch Game of Thrones because I didn't want Twitter to tell me what was happening. It didn't matter because it wasn't that great. I go to his room, I open his laptop, I try to log into HBO, and instead a Facebook notification pops up, a messenger. The message was from a woman. It was flirty but not overt. It was just enough to make me look a little further. I opened up the inbox, and there it was. Messages from several women, all led by him. Messages like, hey, you mind if I come over and give you a massage tonight? Or when he said to Kim the week before Christmas, I really do miss you. Or the one where he had asked a woman, do you still go to that same bar in Royal Oak? I would love to come and meet you there. They made plans to meet, and they did. They met while I was out of town on travel. He walked into the room, and he looked at me, and I must have looked like I had pain. I must have had pain in my face. He asked me what was wrong, and I said nothing. Because in the moment, I didn't really know what I was going to say. We sat there in stone silence. He looked up and he said, why aren't you watching Game of Thrones? And I was like, I just don't feel like watching it. More silence. Candy, what's wrong? It was there that I broke. Who's Teresa? I said. What are you talking about? In a more direct tone, I said, okay, what are all these messages on Facebook? He looked at me in my face and said, here we go with this shit again. See, In the beginning of our relationship, remember back in June of 2016, we had a very similar situation to this happen. I was using his phone to do something, and a text message came across, a little bit more direct than those Facebook messages. And so when I came to him about him, he apologized. And with tears streaming down his face, he looked at me and he said, "I will never make you feel this way again. I will never make you question my love for you." And I believed him. So the coldness of his answer this time let me know that I was in this fight alone. So I started packing all of my stuff up, and I kept saying to him, "I can't believe you did this to me again. I knew you would do this to me." I'm walking through the house and going down the stairs to his side door, and I'm waiting for him to yell, grab me, fight for me. His best friend was walking up the stairs from the basement because he was blocking me in the driveway. Mr. Smile opened the door and let me walk out. As I was walking towards my car, his best friend was walking back from moving his car, and he could see the tears in my eyes, and he looked at me and he said, "Sis, it's gonna be okay." And I said, "Not this time, Mike." I looked at him and I said, "I just want you to know I really did love him, and I really did try." Mike said, "Sis, I promise it'll be okay." That next Sunday, after a week of mostly silence between the two of us, I called him. Because like any person who loves somebody, you wanted to know what happened. How did we get here? What did I miss? What did I do wrong? And so we're talking on the phone, and I'm going over everything, and I keep asking questions, and he's giving me very vague answers and barely really wanting to be there. And then eventually I say something, and he said, "Hey, listen, if you're done, be done." The coldness of his words sent me into a rage. So I screamed. It's the only thing I knew to do. And he hung up the phone. That was the last conversation we had. I just wanted him to fight for me, and I was grieved. Our breakup had an interesting intersection. It came on the precipice of the hot girl summer revolution. So every song on the radio was telling me to get up, get on the horse, and get back out there, because I was a bad bitch. So I did. So once my eyes were unswollen after 2 weeks of crying, and I stopped living off of gin and sheet cake, and I took that sweater I wore for a solid 2 weeks off. My coworkers got very tired of that one. I got back out there, and let me tell you something. It is funky out here. I hate it here. Everybody, it's weird to go from a relationship to swiping for love. I read all these articles about how people were meeting folks on dating apps, and they were bonding over stuff like true crime podcasts and rehabbing dogs for orphan dogs, or rehabbing dog houses for orphan dogs. Everybody who I meet on dating apps is named Bobby, getting money to the day I die. Rest in peace, little Ray Ray. And they all leave me messages like, "Damn, girl, you thick. You like one of them Jill Scott types." I guess that shouldn't offend me, but it does somehow. Or, "Damn, you one of those smart ones, huh?" Kinda, yeah. Which is why I'm never going out with you. Or my favorite, and this always happens, "Well, I don't understand why you were so offended by me asking you to perform that lewd Act 1 message into our communication." I really do hate it here. And let me tell you something, the real life meeting is not that great either. I met this man one night out at a cigar bar. We had a really, really good time. He was super nice, really smart, well-dressed. We exchanged phone numbers at the end of the night. He kept sending me all these sweet text messages. So the next day, he sent me a message and he said, "I just want you to know, from the moment I saw you, I wanted to kiss you." So we're exchanging messages throughout the day. I was out running errands. I'm going to be very clear about this. And so I missed a few of the text messages, and I figured I'd go back and read them later. Well, I'm meeting one of my friends for brunch, and I'm so excited about these messages because he's so nice, and I'm like, yes, finally, a real one. And so I hand her my phone, and I was like, read these text messages. Read about my new love. She looks at my phone, and she's reading, and eventually she looks up, and she looked at me in bewilderment and said, Candice, he's married. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so, remember when I said that I had been running errands and I missed a couple messages? Well, one of the questions I had asked him was, where do you live? And his response to that question was, in Novi, with my wife and son. So, when I asked him later, hey, what's going on here? He responded, what's the problem? I just wanted to be your friend. I wasn't hitting on you or anything. There was also a lot of clergymen over that summer. Pastors had a real thing for me this summer. I think they could sense the need for intercessory prayer on me. There were a couple flings on trips, some more dating apps, very little sex. But by the time fall got here and the end of hot girl summer came, I got the news that set me back down. That man that I thought I would marry just 5 months before then had moved on, and not in a dating app and summer fling kind of way. He was creating a new family with that woman that he met for a drink in Royal Oak. Heartbreak feels a lot for me like walking through life and looking for warmth after warmth after knowing love. And so you keep searching and searching until finally you realize that the warmth that you felt when you were in love was internal. It was always you. And so anything that ignites your spirit can reignite that flame. That love from another, that was just kindling. You are the warmth. There are no more dating apps. Very little sex still. It's just me giving myself the most consistent, beautiful, real love that I can muster. And there is nothing casual about that. Thank you.
Candice Fortman. Love thyself first and foremost.